So two numbers that multiply to 100 and add to -20 are -10 and -10. -10 times -10 is a positive 100, but if you add them, you get -20. So your factors are x minus 10 and x minus 10. Here, your factors are x minus 7 and x minus 7, because -7 times -7 is a positive 49, and if you add them, you get -14. Here, what did you guys get? Yep, plus 8. X plus 8. 8 times 8 gives you the 64, and if you add them together, you get positive 16. Okay, so guys, these are called perfect square trinomials. We call them perfect square trinomials whenever you have the same thing twice, because you can write this as x plus 2 squared. It's a perfect square. You can write this as x minus 10 squared, because you have two of them. This can be x minus 7 squared, and so on. Okay, so we're going to learn a new method of factoring perfect square trinomials. We can use the square root property whenever you have a perfect square trinomial. So let's look at this first example. Let's ignore this side for now. Do you guys notice that this is a perfect square trinomial? What two factors will this one be? Yes, this will be x plus 7 and x plus 7. Because you guys are used to doing a little eye chart, you need two numbers that multiply to this 49, but add to the 14. That's 7 and 7. So that's how I get my factors. You can write this as x plus 7 squared. Okay, so we just went on ahead and we factored the left side of the equation. That's the left side. What is it equal to? What did we leave out? The 4. Let's just add that 4 in. So we factored the left side, and it's equaling 4 in this problem. Now let's go ahead and use the square root property. Go ahead, take the square root of this entire side and the square root of this side. Notice the square root will cancel out with the squared. You are left with x plus 7. Now, guys, what is the square root of 4? 2. 2. So remember, we're going to have plus or minus 2. Okay, now let's finish solving. What do I do to both sides? You're going to subtract 7. All right, so let's figure out our answer. You're going to have two different answers. You're going to have a positive 2 minus 2, which is, yes? Oh, sorry, that should be a minus 7. Thank you so much. We subtracted 7 here, right? And this should be a minus 7 right here. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so guys, what's 2 minus 7? -5, so that's one of my answers. And let's do it where it's a -2. So let me erase the circle that I drew. And now we're going to look at -2 minus 7. Because we have two cases. It's plus or minus 2. Okay? So what's -2 minus 7? -9. So those are my two answers. So let's do the square root property again. We have a perfect square on this side of the equation. What factors will this be? I'll do a little eye chart. I need two numbers that multiply to 9, add to -6. Yes, -3 and -3. -3 times -3 is a positive 9. -3 plus -3 is -6. So my factors are x minus 3, x minus 3 equals 20. All I did was factor the left side. Now I can write the left side as x minus 3 squared because I have two of them. Now we're going to use the square root property. So I'm going to square root this side. That cancels out. Whoops. And then we're going to square root the other side. Try to solve it. Let me know what you get. Square root both sides. All right, so we have plus or minus the square root of 20. Now let's go ahead and simplify the square root of 20 here. I'll do it over here. You guys give me two numbers that multiply to 20. 4 and 5. And this will be 2 and 2. So we have 2 times 2 times 5 is 20. Here's a pair of 2's, cross it out, put it outside. So we have x minus 3 equals plus or minus 2 square root of 5. And just finish solving. We put the plus 3 on both sides. So this is your answer. You'll most likely see it like this though. They'll put the 3 in the front, plus or minus 2 square roots of 5. Either way is fine, but in a textbook, you'll see it written like that. They normally put the square roots in the back. All right, now let's continue learning about the square root property. Okay, so I have the steps here on how to do the square root property, okay? Because notice, right now, I do not have the little perfect, I don't have a perfect trinomial like I did in the last example. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to create the perfect example. So what we're going to do here is, step 1, we're going to rewrite it as this, meaning I'm going to move the c value to the other side. That's going to be step 1. So step 1, we're going to rewrite it as x squared plus 8x equals 34. That's your first step. Okay, next, we're going to divide both sides by a. What's my a value here? It's just 1. So we don't really have to divide everything by 1. It's fine. So we don't have to do step 2. All right, next, step 3, take half of b, square it, then add this to both sides of the equation. What is half of b? 4. 4? Okay. So take half of b. You guys said half of b. That's your b value. Let me write that for you. This is a, b, and c. Half of b is 4. What's 4 squared? 2. 16. 4 squared. So we're going to add that to both sides of the equation. So this is x squared plus 8x. We're going to add that to both sides of the equation. So plus 16 plus 16. Do you guys see what we did? That was step 3. Take half of b, which is 4, square it, which is 16, put it on both sides of the equation. That's what this step says, step number 3. Now it says factor the perfect square trinomial. Look, guys, on this side, I have the perfect square trinomial. Let's go ahead and do an eye chart. What are two numbers that multiply to 16 but add to 8? 4 and 4. This is called a perfect square. When you get the same number repeated, that's a perfect square. So we can write this as x plus 4 times x plus 4. But guys, how can you write that? Yes, just x plus 4 squared. We have 2 of them. So I'll just put a squared. Okay, and what's this side? 34 plus 16? 50. Perfect. There we go. Now you just do the square root method. So take the square root of this side, take the square root of this side, and it cancels out. I'm left with x plus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 50, which we're going to simplify. 50 can be written as 2 times 25, and 25 is 5 and 5. That's my pair. So if I write this all out, we have 2 times 5 times 5. Here's a pair, cross it out, goes outside. So we have x plus 4 equals plus or minus 5 square root of 2. All we did here was simplify. All right, last thing, you just subtract 4 from both sides. Subtract 4, subtract 4. This is your answer. The proper way to write it would be the negative 4 in the front, plus or minus 5 square root of 2 in the back. This is not wrong. They're both right. Okay, so number 4, step 1, it says rewrite it as this format. It's already rewritten in that format. Step 2, divide both sides by A. So let's look at this problem. What's the A value? 2. This is A, this is B, and this is C. It said divide everything by A. So I'm going to go ahead and divide every single thing by 2. We are left with x squared minus 8x equals negative 15. So the next step, let's look back at my steps. Take half of b, square it, and then add this to both sides of the equation. So let's see. This is my b value. It's negative 8. What is half of negative 8? Negative 4. And then if you square this, you get 16. So I'm going to go ahead and add 16 to both sides. This will become x squared minus 8x. And I'm going to add 16 to both sides. Okay. Now, this is a perfect trinomial, perfect square. Two numbers that will multiply to 16 and add to negative 8 are what? Negative 4, negative 4. You're always going to get the same number twice. So this is x minus 4 squared. We have negative 4 twice. That's why I have it squared. Negative 15 plus 16 is just 1. Now you're going to take the square root of both sides. That cancels out. And you get the square root of 1. So I'm left with x minus 4 equals, what's the square root of 1? 1, but don't forget the plus or minus. Now we're going to add 4 to both sides. So I'm going to get two answers, you guys. What is a positive 1 plus 4? 5, that's one of your answers. And your other answer, you want negative 1 plus 4. 3. So these are your answers, 5 and 3. All right. First, we're going to divide everything by 4. And we're going to get x squared minus 2x equals negative 3/4. Okay. And we want to take, this is your b value. We want to take half of b and square it. So we have negative 2. What is half of negative 2? Negative 1. Now we're going to square it, and you get 1. So we're going to add 1 to both sides. So we have x squared minus 2x. This is our problem. We're going to add 1 to both sides. Now we get our perfect trinomial here. I'm going to factor that. So two numbers that multiply to 1 but add to negative 2, that's negative 1 and negative 1. So this side is x minus 1. You have 2 of them, so I'm going to square it. Okay, now this is where we're getting stuck on, this fraction part. You can rewrite this 1 as a 4/4. Because 4/4 is still 1. You need the same denominator. They both have a denominator of 4. So this becomes, your denominator stays the same. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. Now we're going to do the square root of both sides. The square root cancels out with the squared. Take the square root of this side. So we get x minus 1 equals plus or minus, what is the square root of 1? 1. What's the square root of 4? Okay. So we're going to have to add 1 to both sides. All right, so let's see what we get. What is a half plus 1? You can either put 3 halves or you can put 1.5. That's one of them. Now let's subtract. Let's do the negative half. So negative 1/2 plus 1 is just a half, or 0.5. So those are your two answers.